all of this stuff that I have will never bring back my people, right? Like that's the thing that really hurts. And it sinks in every now and then that it's like, oh, right. I love this stuff, but it doesn't matter like they mattered.
Welcome to the Curating Grief Show. I'm Charlene Lam, grief coach, author, and founder of the Curating Grief approach. I help people to deal with the stuff after the death of a loved one, the physical stuff and the emotional stuff, through the lens of curating and the skills of coaching. In addition to working with people one-to-one, I have a course called Sorting the Stuff of Life and Loss. And I love talking with people about their grief and the stuff. I want you to meet Rebecca Feinglos, founder of Grieve Leave. If you attended Endwell 2025 in Los Angeles, then you heard her deliver an incredibly poignant and powerful talk about grief in the workplace. Back in 2023, in the lead up to writing my Curating Grief book, I got to sit down with Rebecca through the wonders of Zoom to talk about grief, loss, and again, the stuff. I mentioned that this was back in 2023 because our grief evolves and the way that we talk about our losses evolve. So I just want to give you that context for this is what we're talking about in 2023. I just recently re-listened to her Endwell talk and it just brought me to tears again. And I think after this conversation, you might also say, oh, no wonder she's a rock star. Let's listen in on our conversation. Hi, Rebecca.
Hey, Charlene.
So one, do you want to introduce yourself? Who are you?
Let's start from the beginning. I'm Rebecca Feinglos. So hard to spell, so easy to pronounce. Feinglos. So it's like all of the opposites that you would expect Feinglos to be. I'm coming to you from Durham, North Carolina, which is actually where I'm born and raised, though I spent a few years in Texas after college, a few years in Chicago for graduate school, and then came home back in 2018. And I think that most people around my age probably wouldn't start their story by saying, oh, I am the child of Mark and Susan Feinglos. But that's exactly how I have to tell my story because both of my parents are deceased. And I think it's really, that is a core part of who I am. And my mom died when I was a kid. She died of brain cancer. She was diagnosed when I was 5, but she was an incredible person. She directed the Duke Medical Center Library, actually. And then my late father passed away just a few years ago, very suddenly and unexpectedly. And he was also in medicine. He was a physician at Duke University for like 50 years. He never left. And I would say up until my dad's death, my life was pretty linear, Charlene. I mean, I always wanted to be in public service and in government serving people. And I was doing a darn good job of that, I'd say. I worked incredibly hard in college, went to Duke, joined Teach for America in Texas, pivoted to policy, joined the mayor's office in Chicago, worked for them, came home to North Carolina to work in state government here and lead early childhood policy. I got married somewhere in there, which seemed like a wonderful idea at the time. And somewhere along the way, COVID came along. On day 1 of COVID lockdown, I found out my dad died like super suddenly, totally unexpectedly. And that caused me to rethink a lot of things in my life.
Wow. So that was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Day one. I was in the governor's office shutting down schools because I was the person in our state Department of Health and Human Services where I worked who had the most K-12 experience. And so I was figuring out how we were shutting down schools. I called my dad on the way in to work on a Saturday. And he said, I love you. That's amazing. Please be safe. And I was like, okay, I will. Love you, Dad. Bye. And he was dead 2 hours later. That was the next phone call I got. And he was my best friend. I mean, my father was everything to me. And that death, of being 30 years old with 2 dead parents in the middle of COVID, coming face to face with a relationship, a marriage that actually wasn't working at all. And that I finally had to face that truth in lockdown. A year later, I separated from my now ex-husband. And 2 years after that, I decided to leave the job that I loved in government, that I'd worked so hard for, because I knew that there was just like this overwhelming feeling, and I didn't have the word for it at the time. But as you and I both know, that's some grief, a lot of grief piled up over time. And I just sounded so Southern, piled up over time. And
You can go
I
South.
haven't said y'all yet, have I? And I decided to quit my job and spend a year on what I called my year of Grieve Leave, which was at first me just like blogging and exploring, like, okay, what is grief? What is loss? What do I do with that? Like, how do I actually process all of these feelings? What does grieving actually look like? And that blog took off into something much bigger than I thought it would ever become. And from there, I founded a company. And now Grieve Leave is this movement of thousands of people globally, particularly young adults, who actually, just like me, none of us actually know what to do with our grief. And all of us need more support in navigating this thing that is so universal, but so confusing and hard to talk about and taboo. And that's what Grieve Leave does. We educate people every day. I train businesses on how to create more grief-informed workplaces. We host support group meetings. We call them meet and grieves. We host interviews with wonderful experts and thought leaders in the grief space like you. And I love this work. It is a different take on public service than I ever thought I would be doing, but it's a joy to support people every single day. And it's making something, I think, quite beautiful out of this just massive losses that I've experienced in my life, like way too early. But now other people are catching up. So that's nice. Like, I have advice for them and thoughts, and we get to come together as a community. So that's what Grieve Leave is. That's what we're doing. We want to change the whole world, Charlene.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's something that we have in common too, right? That we both believe in beautiful things and we like beautiful things. I can tell just by your surroundings and your amazing wallpaper.
Thanks.
And we both value beauty as a way to balance out loss and ugliness that's in life. Thank you so much for your openness too. Right.
Gosh. You know, something you just said also, just to quote my dad, because I do it all the time, he really relished in beautiful things. And so did my mom. But my dad always said, every single person in life will get shit, but not everyone gets the good stuff. Not everyone is lucky enough to get those little pockets of good stuff. So when you get good stuff in your life, you really have to cherish it and you really have to enjoy it. And I think that's why that man loved beautiful things and food so much.
I love that.
Yeah.
What kind of beautiful things would your father cherish and relish?
Oh, we can open up this can now. So my dad was a fascinating person. So he was a physician, which I already said, by day. But since he was 5 years old, he collected rocks and minerals and some gems. Gems are the pretty ones out of those, though there are many beautiful minerals too. But my father, at age 5, his aunt gave him like a little rock collecting kit, like a starter kit, in the 50s. And it was the only toy he played with that birthday. And my grandmother, his mom, was like, well, that's interesting. And just kept supporting his budding interest and would take him he was from Syracuse, New York, would take him all across the state of New York, particularly upstate, to Rochester and places in Syracuse to buy more minerals. And he, as a kid, just started to grow in his love of minerals. And eventually his collection became world renowned. He originally went to college for geology, and he decided to keep mineralogy and geology as his like passion and make a living through medicine instead. But growing up, that meant that our household always had a mineral room in it, like with thousands and thousands and thousands of minerals, many of them on display, many more thousands in drawers. Some minerals were like an actual speck like a speck on a little card in a little, I don't even explain, in like a little tiny clear, like plastic case. But he had it, he had one of whatever that thing was, to ranging to like very large. For him, he would maybe maximum would be like about this big, but some people love to collect like gigantic minerals.
I guess luckily for your
loved them.
family, he didn't collect enormous ones.
He would have said that he collected ugly, rare things, especially. Like those were his favorites. But he kept pretty ones on display. So when people from all over the world would come to visit, there was always something for everyone. But he ultimately, in his collection of over 10,000 specimens, he had at least one of 80% of every mineral in the world. That's insane. Like, that's insane. And he was so well respected and beloved for his study and appreciation of mineralogy. And that was just his like side hobby. That's his longest love since he was 5 until the day he died.
I love that your father was a collector.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very attracted and appreciative to people who collect and who appreciate. So it sounds like your father was a collector and an archivist. And it sounds like he was really kind of curating his displays.
Yes.
So I love imagining this.
100%. I mean, if you went into our childhood home, there were minerals that he had, like the front case that would be for guests who would come. So he had just a few things there, and he had some trilobites, so some fossils too. But then like, if he really wanted to show you the rocks, he'd bring you upstairs to his mineral room. And, in the later years, it was part of this whole routine that you visited our house. My dad, would cook us dinner, and then he would say, all right, let's go look at the rocks. He'd bring a glass of wine and open drawers and explain things to people. But it was just something that was his thing. Like, rocks and minerals were my dad's thing. There's actually a mineral named after him, feinglossite. He discovered 7 new minerals over the course of his life, which is crazy. People would send him later pictures, but like in the earlier days, actual samples of minerals that they didn't know what they were. My dad would like identify them. And that's how he discovered many new minerals that way. Anyway, but it was always his thing. And then when he died, my brother and I were faced with this question of like, so what do you do with a world-renowned mineral collection that neither my brother nor I have an older brother, he's the best. Neither of us would have called ourselves like mineral people growing up. Like, that was our dad's thing. And like any collection, like there's a community of mineralogists globally. There are many mineral people in the world. We were always mineral adjacent, and suddenly we had this giant collection. Yeah, we like appreciated them, but I didn't know, like, you couldn't hand me a mineral and I'd tell you what was on it. I didn't have until like the last couple of years of his life when I started to be a little more interested. And I like the pretty ones, right? So I was like, Dad, what if I just collected pink minerals? And I think, Charlene, I swear, he was like, are you serious? Really? I would love to help you. And it was, he just started like scouting for pink minerals for me that were pretty. Oh,
I was curious about that. Was he okay with you and your brother not being mineral people?
Yeah. What a great question. My dad, and I mean, so my mother became sick when I was very young, but I imagine she was the same way. I mean, my dad was very open to his kids doing what interested them. And my brother and I think we certainly have collector's genes, right? Like, I'll speak for myself, not my brother. I collect clothes and jewelry and like that kind of stuff, and purses. But neither my brother nor I were hard science people growing up. And that's okay. Like, my dad didn't push it on us. We both went through little phases of like wanting to have our own little mineral collections. And I think Dad got his hopes up every time we'd like express interest. And then it just fizzled out. But I always appreciated the jewelry side of his mineral collecting and like gems and stuff. That was fun for me. But it just wasn't our thing, which is, then again, it just becomes so ironic because of his untimely death. It's like, oh, actually, this is now our thing. Like, it is literally our thing. This collection is now it is literally ours.
You mean
and so
as
figuring out what to do with it.
As custodians, the owners, and with the responsibility for this collection?
Correct. And there's a lot more to say here, but at the time of my dad's death, his best friend had just died a year before, who had also collected minerals. And my dad and my brother were helping, this is hard to follow, but we're helping his late best friend's wife figure out what to do with that collection. And my brother and I had kind of planned in our minds, maybe this is a way to better understand what dad would want us to do somewhere way far in the future for where he would want his collection to go. And what we knew is that he did not want the collection split up. We knew that. We knew that he certainly didn't want it like getting sold off piece by piece. Our dad was such an academic and such a custodian of the science, and he curated that collection for, oh my God, how many years? 67 years. And he wanted that collection to stay together. So we knew that. And right before he died, they had almost finalized that his best friend's mineral collection was going to be donated to Harvard University. And my dad had a strong relationship with a variety of different museums, geologic and mineralogic folks. And he just like was very sciencey with all of them and would go visit them and like talk to them about minerals. And he was very close with people at Harvard. And that's where he decided that his friend's collection would go. And so when dad died, we kind of knew then that this is what he would have wanted. And my brother and him had some of those targeted conversations prior to my dad's unexpected death. And so we knew what to do, thank God. Like we had at least an idea of what to do with it. I can't imagine like what happens to someone who inherits something like that without any sense of like what their person would have wanted to have happened with this, like it's his life's work. It was his baby.
Yeah. I mean, you speak to this very common experience that people have, even if it's not a world-class collection, right? It's kind of like, oh, what did she want me to do with the photos, the jewelry? Which of this jewelry is precious and which is just junk? When we don't have that information, it's this bizarre situation we're in, right? We lose someone, and you've experienced both kinds where there's been illness and the very sudden loss.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're expected to make these really big decisions when we are least equipped to really research any of it, access our best frame of mind. So absolutely, it really can be junk jewelry that we're agonizing over and wondering what would they have wanted. And in the way that you've been telling the story too, right, of thinking that you would know what to do way off in the future.
Yeah.
Someday I'll have to deal with this, but they'll be old. It's just a hypothetical, really, in our minds. And when it comes sooner than we can ever expect, yeah,
it's exhausting. And it's, you're making me think about a couple other experiences here. So when my mom died when I was 13, and I have tissues prepared. I'm sure I will get emotional at many different points throughout this conversation, but this one's a toughie. I remember after mom died and I was 13, I remember in like the days after, my dad, I think my godmother was around too. They were going through my mom's closet because it had been untouched. My mother was in a nursing home very late in her life. She was quite unwell. Brain cancer will do that to you. And my dad hadn't touched her stuff. And when she died, he wanted to, I think, kind of clear things out. And I think that was very important to him. And we stayed in the house. It was the house that they bought together. But I remember as a 13-year-old being summoned by him into his bedroom and having all of my mom's jewelry laid out on the master bed, all of it. And her clothes and her shoes, everything just but it's the jewelry that stands out to me. And I just remember him telling me, okay, pick what you want. Not in like a mean way, but in like I need you to do this because I need closure and I need to be able to move forward. And I remember at the time as a 13-year-old being like, holy shit, like, what are my, literally as a 13-year-old, what are my tastes now? I don't like any of this jewelry because I'm a 13-year-old girl and don't want like the Tiffany's necklace. You know what I mean? Like I'm good. But I remember playing out in my mind, like, what might I want in the future? And like, how could I possibly know? And it was too emotional, I think, at the time for my dad to wrestle with like advising me, though I think he advised me on the very, very nice pieces of jewelry and he kept those in a safe and was like, well, I'll hang on to those for you. But I just remember thinking to myself, like, I don't know, I'm going to randomly pick things because I have no clue. And I'm going to pick some things that I like. And I'm going to now, and I'm going to pick some things that like, I'm going to guess that future Rebecca might like. And I look back on that and I just wish that my dad had gotten a storage unit and put it all in a storage unit for me to then decide on later. And you know what? That probably would have been really emotionally hard for him. I get why he didn't do that. I get it. I truly get it. But for me, I wish that I, as an adult, could have gone through my mom's belongings and like made that decision as an adult. Because I am not the same as I was at 13. And I kept a lot of wonderful things. And I'm wearing one of those Tiffany's necklaces, right? Like I understand, like there are things that needed to be kept, but you can't keep everything, Charlene. I know that, but I was not equipped to make that decision at the time at all. That was tough.
Oh, I feel for your 13-year-old self. I mean, also, what a forward-looking 13-year-old self you were.
I really cared about clothes and jewelry, you know, like I was like, I don't want to get rid of something I might like. But my dad very specifically was like, you can't keep everything. I just remember that. I remember like being told I could not, I had to make some decisions, which also felt like a lot of pressure. Like my brother didn't have to make any choices like that when my mom died, you know, and that's like my burden as the daughter, you know?
There's so many impossible choices that we're faced with when we have these kinds of losses, right? That it's like, wow, yeah, putting that on a 13-year-old. Like, I'm impressed that your 13-year-old self was even able to think about what future Rebecca might like, because I hear very often that people said, well, no, I didn't want anything at the time, either because I didn't know, or I was too young, or I was too angry. So I didn't want to look at anything, so I couldn't choose. So the fact that your 13-year-old self was even able to consider that, I find really impressive.
Is it impressive, or is it just, you know, parentification of a child? And that was actually like quite unhealthy for me in the long run. But like, yes, I was very much in a position at a young age to have to make a lot of decisions that like the average child does not and should not have to be making. But I get it. I get why my dad wanted to like let me be independent. Like I very much understand why, but man, my advice is to go about that a little bit differently, like to anybody who is who is listening, I had one other follow-up, but this is a much longer conversation, is about my grandmother, my mom's mom, who died last year, because everyone is deceased now in my family. But my last remaining grandparent was still alive, and she died in my year of Grieve Leave, my year of kind of blogging about everything. And my brother and I went through her house. My brother was our grandmother's primary caretaker for the last years of her life. Have I mentioned my brother's just a wonderful human being? He's the absolute best. He just got married. He's the best. He and I, though, saw firsthand what it looked like for someone to have never thrown anything away ever. And my grandmother was a wonderful person. I loved her very, very much. But she also operated with this, I think, World War II mentality. She died at 98. I mean, she'd lived a very long life. And she had, I'd say, like every possession she ever owned in that house. She never threw anything away at all. And so what was very hard is, let's just think about clothes and jewelry. To your point, I had no idea what was junk and what was treasured. And to her, even the junk probably was actually treasured, and that's why she kept it. And because every single thing had a story. And so volume-wise, I literally could not physically keep every single thing of my grandmother's. I could not keep all her clothes, could not keep all her jewelry. But I, as an adult, felt so much more empowered, like this time around, to go through everything and to think about it like, okay, I appreciate this dress. I appreciate this piece of jewelry. I love this scarf. This makes me happy. I want to wear this dress and think of my grandmother. Like I was so intentional about what I kept and what I donated, or frankly, what we sold. And that is a decision that I was able to make as a grown-up. And I really, that is what is like, having had that experience now makes me look back on the experience I had with my mom's stuff, that of course I could not possibly as a child have that level of like that lens in looking at things, you know?
Yeah. You were not equipped. And thank you so much for naming the kind of parentification that often happens. Something for the therapist, of course.
Oh, trust me, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not to like, you know, say, I don't want to say that my dad did anything wrong, or even my grandmother did anything wrong in keeping everything. Like everyone does the best with the information that they have at the time.
Yeah.
And my dad did his absolute best. My grandmother did her best. And both of them had different approaches to stuff, I would say. And that is fine. I mean, whatever approach you take is going to have an impact on the person who's left behind, right?
Yeah.
And there are pros and cons no matter what you do. And you know what? I have plenty of my mother's jewelry and clothes, and I have plenty of my grandmother's jewelry and clothes and other things that mattered to them, and I am just fine. And the other thing, Charlene, that sucks so much is all of this stuff that I have will never bring back my people, right? Like that's the thing that really hurts. And it sinks in every now and then that it's like, oh, right. I love this stuff, but it doesn't matter like they mattered, you know?
Like you said, we're all just coping the best way we can. And I really just do come back to impossible choices.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about being that 13-year-old and being told to pick out what you want, what came to mind really was, well, of course, what you wanted was your mother.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't the jewelry.
Exactly. No, I need the jewelry.
Yeah. It also calls to mind too, right, in having these conversations with people who have lost loved ones, the similarities and then also the differences in the circumstances and the context for our losses. Like I lost my mother 10 years ago and I was already an adult. So I had the unfortunate responsibility of making all the decisions about this stuff. And I am in a community of motherless daughters. And it's been really eye-opening to hear about the range of experiences, people who were young, like you, when they lost their mothers. And either they were given no choice because back then, people didn't really know how to take care of children's emotional needs. Or, yes, you're given a choice, but you're also just a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But there's nothing easy about it. I mean, listen, losing a parent, losing a mother, losing a parent at any age sucks. It all sucks. There's never a good time. Like, children are supposed to be protected, right? Like, this should have never happened to me. It should have never happened to my brother, but it did. And we lost our dad way too young too. Like, this should have never happened. And yet we're still here. And we're just going to keep going because that's all we know how to do. And we learn from all the decisions that we've made up until this point. Like, my approach to stuff and the things that I have now is colored with all of the experiences that I've had with loved ones dying, because I've just had to navigate stuff, dead people stuff, over and over and over again in my life. And like, my entire home, even just like in looking around the room, like, there are pieces of my people everywhere because that makes me really happy. But it's very intentional. Like, sure, there are things that I have potentially in that closet over there that are just like in boxes that I still don't know what to do with, that are just, you know what, they're just going to sit there and I'm not going to beat myself up over that. It's fine. But most of the things that I have, I really want to have. And that has come from a lot of time spent thinking about my loved ones and their stuff.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
I mean, I love that you said intentional. I do think it makes all the difference of one choosing. So it's not just everything, all the unsorted piles, but yes, just the importance of being intentional. One, of choosing when we're faced with all these circumstances outside of our control. And I love how you named choosing with intention what goes into your home, what goes into your living space. How did you choose kind of what went into your living space?
Yeah.
Was it the experience with your grandmother's stuff that made you say, no, I will not be keeping everything?
I just refuse. Yeah. So in my living space, I have a lot of my mom's art up. So my mom, both of my parents, I feel like were just Renaissance people of 1,000,001 talents. So my mother, again, I mentioned, was the director of the Duke Medical Center Library and like wrote one of the first books, if not the first book, on search engines as the internet was coming out, and like changed how we search for information in libraries and beyond forever. So she was a huge pioneer in that, but she was always very creative. And so she painted, did a lot of collages. When she and my dad moved down here for his residency, she sewed her own clothing because she wanted a new creative challenge. And I have everything she made. I have all of the clothes she made. She made some cool bangles too that I just found a bunch more of at my grandmother's. I thought I only had one left. No, I found a box of all of these like paper mache bangles that my mother hand painted that honestly my brother probably thought were junk. And then I was like, oh, these are the bangles that mom made. And so like he grabbed this box, was like, I had no idea, and took it out of the donate pile. Anyway, but in my living space, like, I wanted to see my mom's art around me. When I have guests over, I like to tell them, oh, my mom did that. Oh, like, this is a wall of my mom's, like, these 3 collages I think look really beautiful together. So they're in this hallway. And I intentionally put them in the hallway on the way to the guest bedroom because the guest bathroom, because I want every single person who uses the bathroom to see my mom's art. Like, I want them to ask me about it. I want to point it out. I have minerals of my dad. Well, they're mine now. This is like a longer story, but remember how I said I was starting to collect pink minerals toward the end of my dad's life, and he was deeply excited about that? So there was this one specimen. I have it. Do you want to see it? I brought it for this conversation. Okay.
Yes. Show and tell. Show and tell.
Okay.
Oh, that's enormous.
Well, it's not though. This is like so tiny compared to,
You
so
need
this
both
is
hands to hold it.
the pink mineral on it, it's kind of peachy pink, is rhodochrosite. RH, I'm going to look on the label. RHODOCHROSITE, rhodochrosite. And I just remember I had like piqued my dad's interest in saying like, oh, maybe I want to collect some pink minerals or just have some like pretty minerals in this condo that I was moving into right before COVID and the whole world ended. And my dad was very excited about that. And I, months before he died, right? And I remember him calling me and saying, he called me Becky and saying, Becky, I've gotten a call about a really cool specimen of rhodochrosite. It is pink-ish, and it is from a mine in North Carolina. I think you should buy it. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. This is my first mineral I've ever bought. Sounds amazing. It was a good purchase. Minerals were an investment for him and also like for scientific value and for aesthetics. Like it was a lot of things. He was so excited about this piece. And I was like, will you hang on to it for me until I move into the condo and like I have, space to put it and keep it safe? He was like, sure, great. And so when he died and we went into his mineral room for the first time, which was eerie because it like wasn't a place that you'd go in without him, he had my mineral, just like, can't even explain. It's like he had all these display cases. It was a whole room. Thousands of specimens. And he had my mineral like in front, like not with his collection because he knew it wasn't his, but he wanted to tell everybody about this mineral. And he was like, oh, this is my daughter's. This is for her when she moves into her place. And so for like 6 months, anytime, because people would often come see his collection, he'd tell everyone, oh, this is Becky's mineral. And so when we went into his mineral room for the first time when he died, I took that home with me that day because like he had kept that for me. And we knew we were not going to donate that with his collection. It wasn't part of his collection. It was for me. So that is on display at my home in my condo. It's on a shelf because I want people to ask me about it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it. Yeah. So what he would tell you is it's the pink crystals that matter. The rest of it is like matrix, meaning God, I sound so minerally, but I swear I don't really know what I'm talking about, Charlene. But like, there's always like rocks means there's more than one mineral as a part of it. So there's like a bunch of other things that the rhodochrosite crystals are sitting on. And this is a very, like, if any mineral people are hearing about this specimen or watching like any footage from this, they're all freaking out about this specimen. Someone asked me about this specimen in particular after he died. They're like, you gonna keep it, that rhodochrosite? You gonna keep that? I'm like, yes, it is mine. Thank you.
Yeah. My dad set that aside for me.
Yeah, it's mine. You cannot have that. I'm not getting rid of it. It's a special piece. But so yeah, those are the types of things that I have out, like things that I want people to engage with me on, things that I want to be proud of talking about. And I have all kinds of other stuff, but like the things that are my family's, like those are objects that they're beautiful and they represent something to me. I could tell a fun story that goes with that thing,
Yes. Oh, I love that you had this bond. And the parallels, right, of how you describe now of having your mother's art because you want to talk about it. You want to be asked about it. And having the pink mineral that your father set aside for you because you want to talk about it. You want to talk about him.
Yeah.
And the parallel with how he had it in his mineral room because he wanted people to ask about it so he could talk about you. Like that's such a beautiful mirroring of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's really sweet. I hadn't thought about it that way, right? Like, why else would he just keep it out in front of everything else? Like he wanted people to be like, what's that one doing sitting there? Yeah. Oh, that's really sweet, Charlene. Thank you. But you're right. He loved talking about it. It was also a really good specimen. And I think he wanted me to give it to him, but I wasn't going to because it was for me.
I'm sure he was excited about you starting your collection.
He was thrilled. Oh my God. It was like the best thing that ever happened to him. He was so excited. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine like him anticipating like, oh, we are going to geek out about the
Oh my
funeral.
God. Oh, you should see the email threads. Yeah, it was wild. He was so excited. Yes, exactly.
I love it. So like imagining this imaginary, you know, gallery space that we've got, right? That's what we do with the grief gallery. We imagine that we've got an imaginary gallery and this exhibition featuring the belongings of our loved ones and the meaningful objects that we have that remind us of them. So I can imagine now, okay, like on one display pedestal, there is pink mineral. I do not remember the name.
Rhodochrosite.
Rhodochrosite. So
Good
that's
job.
there.
Yeah, perfect.
And then I think definitely around the gallery walls, there's your mom's artwork. Maybe on a display pedestal, there are some of those hand-painted paper mache bangles, bracelets that your mom made.
Yeah.
What else might be on display? What's another meaningful object?
I literally brought 3 things to show you. Do you want to see them? Okay.
Heck yes.
So from the art side of things, this is usually on the wall over there. So I look at it. This is just this tiny little painting that I had framed that I found in a box of my dad's stuff after he died. And my mom painted this. And her initials are down there, SF, Susan Feinglos, 1979. Only my brother and I would know that this was the original wallpaper in our kitchen when they first moved there and before they renovated it. This is one of the antique chairs that they bought when they first moved to Durham, North Carolina. And then that's our kitchen window. And I'm sure my mom just like painted this little thing on one, a moment of downtime as she's looking out the window, and probably just handed it to my dad and was like, here, I painted this for you. And I'm sure my dad was like, oh, thank you so much. And so many years later, to me, it symbolizes my mom, of course, and her talent, but it symbolizes home. Like it's a piece of my childhood home. The kitchen was a very important place to the Feinglos family. We always gathered in the kitchen. We always ate deliciously. It was just like our community space. It's where we had conversations as a family, always was around the kitchen table. And I just love that, like, this is so specific, but I love that it's not like a full image of something. Like it's not a full painting of the kitchen table. It is a zoomed in view of this one chair and this one section. And in my mind, it's like, I can never have my mom back. I can never have my dad back. I can never have my childhood home back in the same way, but I will always have those like memories and those snapshots. And so I look at this, I don't keep it behind me anymore. I used to, because I wanted people to ask me about it in the background of interviews. But I decided that I wanted to look at it when I was giving interviews. I want to see that snapshot. Like, I want that reminder that my past is always with me, not in a like weighing me down way, in a way of like the beauty of all of those memories. And that this was 10 years before I was born. She painted this 10 years before I was born. That means a lot to me. This is even before I existed, So anyway, I had it framed. It sits on the wall over there. That's
so
another object.
Beautiful.
Thanks. And then the other thing.
And sometimes I talk about like the different roles that the objects can play in our lives. And sometimes it's like a souvenir, a souvenir of a different place, of a different time, or of a moment. And like you said, a snapshot. And that sounds like the kind of souvenir kind of object.
I love that. And that it's like deep, like it's not in Yiddish, we will say like tchotchkes. Like it's not like just a tchotchke that's like, you know, I mean, I have things of my own. Like I love the Muppets, so I keep a little
Oh, it can be a cheesy
Cookie Monster,
magnet, like
whatever, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But this is not one of those things. Like this is a thing that carries deep meaning for me and is very intentionally placed, and that it is for my eyes. That means a lot to me.
Yeah.
I have a third thing. Do you want to see my third thing?
I want to see all the things.
Okay. So I brought this dress out. And if you go on my Instagram, you'll see that I wore this the other day. So it was just the 1 year anniversary of my grandmother's passing. Her name was Beryl. This is my mom's mom. And this dress has many layers to it. She wore this dress to my wedding. Layers, right? Because I'm divorced. Don't forget all the griefs, Charlene.
This is a bright dress because I'm seeing blues, different
she
greens.
Was vibrant. She loved blues and greens. And when we were picking out what she was going to wear to my wedding, she was like, I am absolutely not buying something new. I have so many clothes. Let's pick something. And I was like, wonderful. I love this assignment. So I went through like all of the clothes in her closet. You know, she was very much wheelchair bound. And so her trying on anything was hard. And she was 5'2" on a good day. And so she was tiny. I'm 5'8". My mom was 5'10". My grandfather was 6'4". I mean, everyone was tall except her. And this dress was one of the things that we had her try on. It was like floor length on her. There are plenty of pictures of her wearing it at my wedding. And she looked stunning in it. And I remember telling her at the time, as we were trying on a bunch of different dresses, I was like, oh, this one is absolutely my favorite. And I said, if you don't wear it, I will wear that one day. And she was like, it'll never fit you. It's going to be like way too small. And I was like, Nana, this full-length gown on you will be a midi dress on me. It is stretchy. It's Italian. It's just so cool. Like from the 70s. She didn't even remember where she got it. She's just like, oh yeah, I love that dress. Great. She wore it. She looked like a boss. She's stunning, gorgeous, comfy. And so on the 1 year anniversary of her death, which actually, because everything happens at once, right? It was just a few days before my brother got married. In Jewish tradition, we have what's called an unveiling on the 1 year anniversary, usually, of the first anniversary of that person's death. You unveil the headstone. You actually mark the grave with a headstone for the first time. And so we had a dinner for family for our grandmother's unveiling 3 days before my brother's wedding. And I wore that dress to the unveiling. Very intentionally, took some photos in it. Of course, it's a midi dress on me. It's so comfy. It is beautiful, stunning. And I loved telling everyone about it. I loved showing everyone, oh, this is a picture of Nana in this dress. I loved telling the story. I loved telling people, frankly, that she wore it to my wedding because I wanted to make a new memory with that dress, this beautiful dress. And she would have loved that. She would have absolutely loved it. So this is what I would also put. I'd hang that in the gallery space.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, textiles. And oh, that's such a vivid pop in like a white gallery space.
Yes.
And what is your Instagram to see this photo?
Oh, well, now people will have to spell my last name. It's R Feinglos, Feinglos. But you can also get to me from Grieve Leave too, at Grieve Leave.
I love it. It's a beautiful dress. And did it hit you at like mid shin?
Midi. Oh, such a midi. Such a midi. So stretched. That was a perfect dress. I loved that. I could sleep in that dress. That's a great dress. Fit great.
That is a great dress.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing those.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've had the unfortunate experience, like you said, of dealing with dead people's stuff time and time again. And I find it really gratifying, or maybe I find it really encouraging to hear that you and your brother work together on this. And it sounds like you're still close. Often there's so much fallout between siblings when it comes to dealing with the stuff. Do you have any kind of insights or words of advice for people?
Ooh, you made me cry immediately. My brother and I were not always close. I think we got close because of my grandmother. He and I are very different. We are wired very differently in a lot of ways. But over the past, 10 years, we've gotten incredibly close. We are very different when it comes to stuff. We are so different. And I love stuff. My brother really loves stuff. And he wants to keep more things usually than I do. My brother wants time looking at things, touching things. He doesn't want to organize the things immediately. He doesn't want to donate things immediately. He wants time. And my advice is, especially in the earliest days of grief, particularly at the beginning, right when my grandmother died, I went into my late father's mindset of wanting to be productive and wanting to go through stuff very quickly and feel very accomplished and feel like I was doing a good job grieving and going through stuff. And I think it really, really frustrated my brother. And if I could go back in time, I would just wait. And that it's okay to just take a little more time, because once that stuff is gone, you can't get it back. And my instincts to be productive and create order out of chaos in the earliest days of grief, I could go, I don't know, like clean something else. I could go do something else and let him have his time and come up with a schedule for us that was agreed upon and shared and clearly communicated and written down, instead of, I think, me trying to win out in the like, who can be more productive with stuff race that isn't real life. I do think that we are good for each other in balancing out, like, we don't need to keep everything, right? We don't need to, we don't have room. That's too much stuff. But he has really impacted me to remember to slow down and really look at and appreciate these memories, because that everyone in my family is gone. And all we have is the stuff. That's actually all we have. We have so many memories, yes, but like all I can touch is the stuff. And I had lifetimes, some of them not actually a full lifetime, but I had time with those people. And now I should have taken more time to like evaluate the stuff and really decide. And my brother, I think, did that quite well with our grandmother stuff. And I'm very proud of him. And shout out to him. He doesn't like me saying his name on things, so I'm not going to say it, but he's the best and is very supportive of Grieve Leave. We're just very different. But yeah, I mean, my advice is like to lean into whatever your sibling is pushing you on, like hear them and like come to some kind of meeting place in the middle,
As another doer, what we call an instrumental griever, who processes by doing things, whether it is cleaning or sorting or being productive, or in my case, putting together a binder and files.
Yeah.
I'll also
love a binder.
Oh man, talk about trying to make some order out of chaos, right? And trying to add some control into situations. Control. The binder makes sense. Everything else doesn't.
Exactly.
But I'll also say that to me, it sounds like you're being quite hard on yourself.
Me? Hard on myself? I would never. Yes, I know.
It does sound like you've come to a place with your sibling of being able to honor your differences or to recognize and even appreciate your differences.
Totally. 100%. I got to tell him at his wedding how much I appreciate him. and that he helps me slow down and see another perspective when I really don't feel like it. He's the best.
I love that. There's so much love there.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, that's what happens when we are the only two Feinglosses on Earth. We are literally the only two ones. Anyone else with a last name that sounds even a little like mine is probably related to me, but we are the only ones that spell it Feinglos.
You're like rare minerals.
Yes. Oh, that's perfect.
You are highly collectible.
I love that.
It is rare to me to come across siblings who are able to work together in that way, even with differences. I have a client who's dealing with their parents' stuff with her sister, and they're another rare set who have been able to really kind of set the intention of not wanting to have this come between them. But too often you hear about how siblings fall out, how the misunderstandings and the different styles really become a wedge. So thank you for showing that it's possible to navigate this together.
And that doesn't mean it always looks kind all the time. We've had our conflict. We will talk it out. During some of the Nana going through the house days, there were some days we just didn't talk to each other anymore. That is okay. And we'd come back together a couple days later, usually over food, and figure it out. Because that is what family does. We are all we have. So we had to figure it out.
That's beautiful. I'll close with kind of just noting, right, that like you said, how your losses have shaped you. Right? Losing your mom when you were a teenager, having her be sick and diagnosed when you were 5, losing your father suddenly, right, at the start of the pandemic when so many people's lives changed and yours changed on an entirely different level, about how the losses shape us. And right, losing my mom definitely changed the trajectory of my life and my work. And it sounds like your losses have done that for you too. So I credit you for yeah, if we're going to be changed, let's go change the world for the better.
Oh my God. The way I say it is, if my entire life was going to fall apart in this truly magnificently awful way, then the least that I can do with that is try to help somebody else. Just try. And I feel grateful that I am in a position to do that every single day now.
Yeah. What's your vision for Grieve Leave?
We will change the world. That is what we are going to do. I want Grieve Leave to be a leader worldwide in talking about grief. Death or non-death grief. There's grief in getting divorced. There's grief in a diagnosis. There's grief in moving across the country to Portugal. There is grief, even if you love it, right? There's grief in everything all the time. And it still remains this word that we don't say, or that is so nebulous and undefined, and yet it is so universal. I want Grieve Leave to be the movement that helps educate people and people in power on how we create a more grief-informed world. So that is what we are doing.
I love it. And also how you're continuing your father's legacy, that you said you always wanted to serve people, and it sounds like he's always wanted to help people. Yeah. And your mom too, wanting to educate people, help keep people informed. So totally. A beautiful tribute to them too.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
And it brings us together.
Thank you. Charlene, you're the absolute best. I love talking to you, and I am so grateful for these conversations. And I'm going to tear up again. Thank you for the takeaways that you've given me from this conversation. And I think your specific mention of my dad pointing out my mineral, outside of his collection, so people could ask him about it, that is going to stick with me. And I so appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing. It's so clear that you really get how the objects really spark stories and ways to stay connected with our loved ones. So thank you so much for sharing the objects and for sharing the stories and your loved ones. Thanks for joining the Curating Grief Show. I think you can hear how powerful it is to talk about the belongings, to talk about the stuff and our relationships with the stuff. If you're dealing with the belongings or the physical stuff after a major loss, which could be a recent loss or from years ago, and if you would like some extra help, some practical and emotional support, go to curatinggrief.com. There you can find out more about my Sorting the Stuff of Life and Loss course, or any of a range of resources to help you use the lens of curating and to find a gentler, creative approach to dealing with these very difficult decisions. That's curatinggrief.com. Take care.